I'm Christina. Welcome to the Revolver Fan First podcast, where we explore each artist's history as a fan, because all artists were fans first. Today we have Chelsea Wolfe with us. How are you this morning,
Hi.
Chelsea?
I'm good, thank you.
Excellent. So I guess the first question, we like to go back to the very beginning. Who was the first artist that you put on a pedestal?
I think I'd have to say Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah.
My dad was really into Fleetwood Mac, and his band would cover them, and so I heard a lot of them. And then I think it was '97 when that MTV performance they did. Do you remember that? Yeah, it was called The Dance. That came out, and I was just like obsessed. And then I got the VHS and watched that a bunch of times. Yeah, just them as performers, the way they harmonized. It's really into Lindsey Buckingham's singing voice. And as I've gotten older, I definitely can see how I've taken a lot of his inflections as my own, over the years. Got a lot of influence from him. But I also I think I wanted to be both Lindsey and Stevie, you know what I mean? I definitely was attracted to both of them musically and just as people, as artists rather. Didn't know anything about them as people, but Stevie's style obviously has had an influence on me over the years. So yeah, that was rambling.
What's it been like sort of singing on Bloodmoon with Stephen and Jacob? Because that's a very different kind of harmonizing. But what has that experience been like, kind of coming all the way forward?
Yeah, for sure. It was a blast. Honestly, I had so much fun with that project, and being able to create parts and step into parts that were meant for multiple vocalists was different. And I think our voices blended with ease. And yeah, I love both of their voices. Steve's singing voice is just awesome. So it was great to harmonize with him a couple times here and there.
Yeah, awesome. What would surprise you about that project?
What had surprised me about it?
What would surprise people about the process?
Oh, well, unfortunately, because of the pandemic, obviously a lot of that had to be done from afar. But we were lucky enough to be able to gather together at the very end of it and do some mixing and sort of throw down a few final ideas. Awesome. It was actually kind of crazy how much magic happened in the span of just a few days at the studio, Kurt's studio, God City. We'd obviously done a ton of work leading up to that, but as soon as we were all together in the same room, there's just this energy and this joy that instantly got channeled into the songs and put all the finishing touches on them.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, Nate was telling me this is his favorite piece of music he's ever been a part of.
Oh, that's cool.
Have a big part. You play a big part in that, and it's it's these kind of different alchemical. That's not a word. I'm making it a word right now.
I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's bring it to the forefront. Who was the first artist you saw yourself in? Which is kind of different to a pedestal.
I'm not sure. Maybe in high school, I spent a lot of time going to Tower Records in Sacramento, where I grew up, and just sort of perusing the CDs and the magazines and stuff. And I remember a few times opening a Spin magazine and seeing an article about Bjork or PJ Harvey. And maybe I didn't specifically see myself in them, but it was I just understood something about them that made me know that I was going to love their music, and just, yeah, really resonated with them. So definitely bought both of, I don't remember which albums of each artist, but, bought their music without ever hearing it, just by reading an article or seeing a few pictures in a magazine.
You've definitely got shades of PJ Harvey in terms of kind of reading as a rock and roll native. She doesn't belong anywhere else, and you kind of belong. I think you guys belong here in this milieu. However, whether it's folk or doom or the whole spectrum of it is a place where I kind of get the sense you kind of call home. You started writing music really young, right? Yeah, because your dad was a musician, correct?
Yeah.
So how did you start, were you writing lyrics first, and what kind of made you pick up an instrument that young?
Yeah, like you said, it was mostly just writing lyrics and having like melodies in my head. And I didn't really play an instrument for a long time. My dad just had like a little simple home studio, and there were keyboards about, so I just sort of like would mess around with the different sounds on those keyboards and make songs out of that mostly. And then here and there over the years, I would learn to play a song or two on guitar, usually just making up my own stuff from whatever chords my dad had showed me. He did teach me the Rolling Stones, Angie, at one point. I think that's like the only song I remember really learning. I'm sure I was like hacking it to death, but it was my little version of that. Um, yeah.
That's interesting playing. So you've mainly played originals throughout, or did you kind of?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to write almost instantly. Like my mom was listening to a lot of like Bonnie Raitt and Joni Mitchell.
Yeah.
So I sort of had this idea that women could be songwriters, and I just sort of took that influence, and also mixed with what I was listening to, which was more like radio, a lot of Aaliyah. She was my favorite at the time when I was young. So I always think of those early songs as like Aaliyah meets Bonnie Raitt or something. Yeah, kind of a strange mix, but it worked for me.
She was pretty great. Like you grew up in a golden age of R&B and then early 90s kind of, as a little kid or whatever. Yeah. It's
definitely.
What was the first music you felt a strong feeling that wasn't love?
A strong feeling that wasn't love. I attribute a lot of like I think we all have like guardian angels of music that sort of show us like the great bands over the years. And when I met my friend and now drummer Jess Gowrie in my early 20s, she turned me on to a lot of stuff that I hadn't really gotten into yet, like Hole and the Distillers and L7. Yeah, L7 really sticks out to me. That song Shit List instantly became like, if I was pissed off or if someone had fucked me over or something, I would just blast that a few times and feel better. And honestly, I still use that technique. I recommend it. So probably L7.
That Natural Born Killers scene, I feel like, is pretty much the ultimate visual expression of that song.
Yeah, it's a great soundtrack for sure.
Yeah. So you and Jess, so she was a guardian angel of music. Was she a part of your gateway drug to heavy music, or?
For sure. Yeah, because when I was like in high school, I was listening to things that were a little bit more like trip hoppy, like Tricky was a big favorite, Sneaker Pimps, like I said, Bjork. And then when I started hanging with Jess, she got me more into like that kind of stuff, into, she was listening to a lot of like Nine Inch Nails and Ministry. So yeah, but then also like when I met my other bandmate, Ben Chisholm, a few years after that, and we started playing music together, he turned me on to like even more like extreme kind of music, or I don't know if extreme is the right word, but like Swans and Gorgoroth, Neurosis, like that kind of rock, and that really like that resonated with me a lot more. Like I love Nine Inch Nails and Ministry, but that kind of extreme music really like felt more like home to me.
When you were like finding yourself as a teenager, and were you a rebellious teenager?
I would say that not inherently, like I don't think it was very obvious from the outside, but I'm a Scorpio, so there was like this inner rebellion that was always kind of like screaming to come out, and I did express that a few times. Like I definitely tried to just sort of like fade into the background and go with the flow a lot, but then I think a lot of like my unexpressed self would come out in certain moments, and then I would just be like, fuck this, I'm done with whatever it was that I was sort of like pretending just to like fit in with, or that I just sort of fallen into. I'm being vague, but anyways, so I think
were you a part of a subculture?
Well, a subculture like musically, you mean? Or?
Yeah, like goth or punk. It was quite a tribal time,
right,
in that time.
I was kind of a bit of a loner, to be honest. Like I had my group of friends, but I also was kind of like, I was interested in a lot of different types of music. So I would sort of go around, like those movies about high school where they show the like different, like here's where the punks hang out, here's where like the metal kids hang out. Like I would just sort of go around every now and then and be like, what's up, and talk to like the metal kids and see what they were listening to. And some of them were more welcoming than others, but it was always like an interesting experience. And yeah, so I don't know if I was like necessarily, I think I don't know.
Yeah,
I was weird. I like dressed like I was a raver, but I never once listened to that kind of music or went to a rave or anything. I just liked that style.
that really
So
pleases me. That like, I
yeah.
love the idea of you as a young person and a raver. Like that's awesome. Were you writing a lot of music at this time?
A little bit, mostly like when I was young, and then in high school it was weird phases, and then more so like when I was getting into my 20s, I started writing again.
Yeah. What were you listening to? Because you made a record that didn't come out.
Mhm.
What were you listening to at that time? Like, were you into confessional stuff, or did you have an aversion to it?
Um, yeah, I
That's
don't know
kind of
if
a
I was,
big, yeah.
no, yeah, when I think of confessional stuff, I'm like, I don't know what exactly I would have been listening to that felt very confessional, but
Hmm.
I mean, like when I was a lot younger than that, like maybe 13 or something, my sister got me into Jewel, that Pieces of You record. And I don't think I was still listening to that. I mean, I definitely wasn't still listening to that at that time, like in my 20s, but maybe like that influence was
Yeah.
kind of carrying over, like, because that was very like confessional, lots of lyrics, lots of storytelling about your day and your relationship. So yeah, I think I sort of tried that approach, or it just kind of came out of me naturally. And when I listened back, was not not feeling it. Just didn't feel like that was what, like, the kind of music I wanted to make. So
What was that first tour with your next record like? Or what were you absorbing at that point?
tour,
Because you
is that
did
what you
some
said?
interesting stuff. Yeah.
Um, you mean like the first time I went on tour, or
Yeah.
sorry?
With that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because you had a band, yes, before you went solo, or
Oh, yeah. I
yeah.
mean, there was like, yeah, I was in a band called Red Host. That
Yep.
was when I met Jess. And yeah, definitely like all those bands I mentioned earlier. That's like what we were listening to a lot of. And, she was also into like the same stuff that I was into, like
Yeah.
Tricky, Massive Attack, and, you know, um, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
How,
yeah, probably that.
how did you get into like the more esoteric stuff? Because obviously you explore a lot of, you know, otherworldly stuff. Like, I know how did your grandmother play into kind of discovering that side of the world?
Mm. Well, yeah, when I was a kid, I spent summers and just a lot of time at my grandma's house. And I mean, the house itself was like an old Victorian covered in ivy with like a pond. I mean, it was a pool, but it was basically a pond in the backyard. And it was just like this really magical space. And I always had a big imagination. So going there to me was like going to this like magical, place. And she was really into like aromatherapy and energy work and massage, and would sort of like practice that on me. And so I got into that too, like, like sitting with her, and she would, like put her hand on my shoulder. We'd be like facing each other, and she would run her hand over all the essential oils and make like blends for me and stuff. So I just sort of got this like understanding of energy and feeling things that aren't necessarily physical. Um, yeah, definitely had a big influence.
Did that energetic stuff play into music for you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
Energy?
mhm. And like visuals as well. I think I always think about this Shoo Shoo song I was really into in my 20s called Brian the Vampire. And it's just got this like really wild synth. And I just remember when I heard it for the first time, it was like I could see it, like I could see the synth parts just moving around and making these shapes and visuals. And, um, I'd gotten that from other music as well, but that's just one that comes to mind. And so I discovered kind of when I was writing music, I was sort of seeking that as well. And sometimes it would just happen naturally. Like I was envisioning scenes or landscapes or just shapes and colors and things like that.
Yeah. Do you remember like did making records and stuff, do you ever see like a fully formed visual element to it? Like when you make a record, is it a whole world like that,
Um,
or
I try to. I don't think I've been like super successful at being organized enough to do that in the past.
Yeah.
You know, now with like the new stuff I'm working on, I'm definitely trying to be a little bit more like ahead of the game and organized, because all of that just takes a lot of time and work
Yeah.
on top of already making the music and everything, obviously. So but yeah, I mean, definitely like the covers of each album, I wanted to really feel like that album. So I would intentionally take a photo or have, one time a painting done
Yeah.
that reflects certain things. Like on the cover of Abyss, it was inspired by that like classic The Nightmare, like because that was all about like sleep paralysis and dreams and things like
Yeah.
that. And
because you had some experiences with that as a kid, right?
yeah, I still
Yeah.
do, honestly.
Yeah.
But like growing up with that definitely, I think, opened me up to different worlds as well. That
What is it
liminal
exactly?
space. Well, there's different kinds. The kind that I have is basically like I wake up, but the figures for my dreams are still there, like in the room with me. And when it doesn't happen as much anymore, but it used to be like they're always moving towards me. So it was this sort of like, suffocating like anxiety. That I think I didn't know how to like turn that feeling off afterwards, because it's sort of in that like liminal space between sleeping and waking. So then I would, either go back to sleep or start my day and just sort of carry that with me. Yeah.
Did that kind of pique your interest in kind of having a sense of there being more than what's here and what people can see?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you think happens when you die?
Oh, that's
it's just a nice, like, just a really,
like
just a
throw
really
that one in there.
question.
That's so funny. I love that. Okay. Well, this is something that, obviously I think at a certain point in your life, hopefully you'll try to approach this question. And it's something that I think about a lot, but I've also come to terms with like the fact that no one really knows, obviously. And so this is just like my own sort of very loose theory of energy transfer. And I mean, obviously, like, oh God.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I put you on the spot.
Okay.
I hope
no,
that's
no,
not
it's
too
okay.
much.
I don't want to sound like an idiot, but I mean, I guess if I'm honest, maybe I've never really tried to explain it so much as just like having it in my head
Totally.
or like journaling or something. But
yeah,
I do feel like that each of us obviously has an energy that goes beyond like our physical self. So I think that keeps going, whether it turns back into something on this earth, whether I don't know. Yeah,
hey, look,
again,
I'm pretty much in that field as well. Like like I agree with you. I think energy can't be destroyed, so it has to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I know. So sorry. I
just wish it was like, I wish it was as easy as being like, oh, I believe in reincarnation, but it's not that. It's more like, I think it's a little more I don't know, nebulous than just saying like one thing becomes the other, because I don't really know.
Well, we can't know.
We can move on. Sorry.
I think it makes more sense to be like,
nobody knows.
Well, what was it like when you started feeling like you were exchanging energy with the audience and the listener? And I was reading about like having some, like, it took you a while to innately connect with being a performer. And I actually saw Mazzy Star a couple of years ago, and she was in the dark. Like, she is not a comfortable performer, but it was so incredible to kind of to see that live. How have you kind of made peace with that energy exchange? And did it ever feel like people coming towards you, or like I don't know. That's energy. How about it?
That's a good point. I mean, to be honest, I never really thought about the sleep paralysis anxiety contributing to like my stage anxiety that I had for a long time. Because I mean, I don't know if you know this or not, but I started performing by wearing like a Victorian mourning veil kind of style, because I think I needed that disconnection. I needed to feel like, even though they were looking at me and I was looking at them, it was like there was a barrier. There was like, we couldn't actually make eye contact. And then once I stopped wearing it, which was an intentional decision, obviously, I found that eye contact to be so powerful and beautiful. And like I could like open up and really feel that energy exchange. And you know, most of the time it was like a really supportive energy. And so
that's great.
Yeah, I think it helped me.
Who do you see as a Chelsea Wolfe fan? What do you think they share? Because you pull a lot of different people from, like, a lot of people are struck by different chords that you play, basically. Like, you play, you know, like, do people embrace the whole canon of it? Like, do you find people can come with you on the path, sort of thing?
I think some do. I think it's hard when someone hasn't heard of me and they'll find out that I'm a musician and they're like, oh, what should I listen to? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, where do you start? Because it's like, yeah, each album kind of has its own feel. And then obviously I do like acoustic stuff or rock stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's probably the kind of person that is open to like a lot of different genres, you know, or maybe someone who's open to someone experimenting. Like, I don't think like a metal purist is going to be at my show because they'd probably just be like, oh, what is she doing with this music? But I think someone who loves metal that's also like open to some different genres, or someone like doing their own thing with it, probably. But
what was it like touring with the Russian Circles?
It was great. I mean, that was like my first real touring experience. I'd done like short little tours before that, but awesome. They taught me the ropes for sure. You know, watching them play every night was great. They're pros and they always sound good and they're great guys. So
but you being on record with them so sick. Like, you know, it's like that. What was that like? I mean, they're an instrumental band. It's kind of awesome. It's like it was another realm. How did that come about, actually?
I don't know. They asked, and then I think I knew the album was going to be called Memorial, and so I guess instantly sort of thought of like older people or going to like a graveyard and visiting a grave or something. So I thought about like a widow, you know, like sort of looking back at her life, looking back at her partnership. But yeah, it was cool. Awesome. It happened really fast, actually.
Well, I like it makes me happy you're making music with some of my favorite bands. Keep doing that. It's great. Awesome. And
awesome.
It's I think it's like, I was listening to like His Spun and then like Birth of Violence, and then, you know, you're kind of going back and forth, and you do kind of speak to something like it's interesting. I love hearing artists kind of go into both realms. Like Melvin's just put out a ridiculous 2.5-hour acoustic album where the drums are just brushes, and I adore it. And I feel the same way about Birth of Violence. They're both like, this is a whole other realm. This is like, I didn't even, like, not that I didn't even know, like you've done, but this, I don't know where I'm going with this in question. But okay, when you were like a young musician, what were some musical storylines you really connected with within, you know, as someone who started as a lyric writer?
Well, when I was 13, my birthday party was to go see Romeo and Juliet, Baz Luhrmann, which
great soundtrack.
Yeah, and I just absolutely fell in love with the movie, and I absolutely fell in love with the soundtrack, which I think was like meaningful for me, because since then I've sort of thought about music in this like cinematic way, like where would this be on the soundtrack? You know, like would this be the closing credits? Would this be like a love scene, or what would this be? So maybe that, like thinking about where in that film they used certain songs, and like the moodiness of Radiohead's talk show host,
Garbage.
And, I mean, that scene where she's like coming to confessional with a gun, and you know, Number One Crush is playing. That's so perfect.
It's off the chain. Like I saw that as a kid too, and I was like, oh, this is just it's the best thing he ever did by like a fairly large country mile. 100%.
It's so good. I love that film.
That's is there a true romance element to Deranged for Rock and Roll? Is there like a bit of a nod to true romance in that?
Probably. Like, and also like Lost Highway. I mean, that David Bowie Deranged song, you know, but just kind of feeling like lost to something, lost to rock and roll, like absolutely infatuated, deranged for it, you know?
Yeah. Have you always been consistently infatuated with rock and roll, or is there been times in your life where you've needed to kind of listen to something else? Like what what do you listen to? Because you've toured a lot. What do you listen to when you're playing every night?
I guess it depends, obviously, on what era of my life and I'm in, but Wardruna has been like a pretty consistent listen for me. Like pretty much since they started, I think 2012, or I think that was it. And then also one of the singers in that project, Lindy Faihella, has started her own like solo project. I think she's on her second record now. Stuff like that. Like it's music that I really like connect to, really resonate with, really find calming and empowering, but isn't like the kind of music that I feel like I could make. Like I wouldn't know how, maybe, but it's just so wonderful and calms me down on the road. Yeah.
Well, it's good to find all the timbres that fit together. Okay, if you were to have a musical Mount Rushmore, what would be the 5 faces carved in the side of it? I know I need to do that, but I did.
Sorry, whenever I think of Mount Rushmore, I'm just like, fuck that place. But
yeah,
I know what you mean.
It's a terrible.
No. I know
these are the true presidents.
Maybe I'll just think about like 5 posters on the wall or something.
That's better. Yeah. I'd never thought about that. There is actually some problems with that. There's actually some significant problems. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like an exploded Buddhist temple. Let's not. Yeah. Anyway, carry
on. Yeah, probably Tricky. I hold him on a pedestal.
Wow, I wouldn't have picked that. It's interesting. Yeah. Like lyrically, like the whole thing.
I think the whole thing, just like the mood. I think in high school, like I said, I was listening to Tricky a lot and just really connected to like that moodiness and that like sexiness that was also dark, not like obvious sexiness or something. Yeah. I really like that.
It sort of beckons you in.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
It
sort of beckons you in a bit. Like, hey.
Yeah, it's like entrancing. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. And then I would put Townes Van Sant up there. Ozzy Osbourne is like my favorite. I love him. Who else?
It would be a fun thing to carve, really. I would so pay homage to it. Like I'd visit. It could be a pilgrimage, like Bollywood. Chelsea would be great. I would go there.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Anyway, so sorry. Weird. Back to the question. Yes.
It would be a weird and dark place.
I know it'd be amazing. I was saying this to Buzz Osborne last week. You should all have the theme park, and I would go. It'd be great.
I love that.
It'd be different. Like I love Dolly Parton a lot. If you don't like Dolly Parton, there's something wrong with you, really. Like definitely, even if you're not into her music, she's a conceptual everything.
She's so wonderful. Like I can't believe she's real sometimes. She's just
she's
wonderful.
80 years old.
Yeah.
Anyway, you got 2 more.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of like old country, maybe I would put like Loretta Lynn or Johnny Cash up there, or Joni Mitchell.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm getting into a lot of names now.
Yeah,
but
they're good names. Yeah, like
I think that's 5.
There's such a good cross section of it, and just moving apart from, there is a lot of music that feels quite templated in the world, and it's nice when people can bring all this different stuff together. Another question we do every time is 5 songs that saved your life, changed your life is actually the name of it. Saved, that's, don't know where that came from, but yeah, changed. Yeah.
Well, they might be kind of similar to the 5 posters, but I think of Black Sabbath, Changes, because obviously, like most of their music's very heavy and dark, but hearing that this like heavy metal band could also do like a heartfelt sort of like piano ballad really affected me and made me think about music in a different way. Not to mention it's just a great song. Again, I feel like I've said Tricky 800 times, but maybe Aftermath from Max and Quay.
Dude, just such an album.
Yeah. Man, I don't know, for some reason right now I want to say Celtic Frost, Dying God, Coming into Human Flesh. I just had a real moment with that, like in my 20s.
Have you had a hardcore moment?
I mean, I got into Converge from Ben,
Yeah.
you know. I don't think I listened to a ton of hardcore. Sometimes I don't even know like what genres certain bands are. Like
Yeah. Well,
I'm
they're
like I
kind of
really
their own
like
thing in some ways. Like, yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
Like I really like Full of Hell right now, but I'm like I don't know exactly what people would label that, but
I can't
um
keep track of it. It's
yeah.
I've never liked genres as a name
Mhm.
because they just feel like lazy journalism on some level. Let's just put it in a
Right.
thing and just box
Yeah,
it in
yeah.
a little
Make it
package and
make it
yeah.
easier to sell. Yeah,
Yeah.
basically.
Sounds like. Yeah. The
Yeah.
whole record company sounds like thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we love that.
Yeah.
um okay, Towns, Fairly Well, Miss Carousel. I might like 4 songs or 3, I
5.
don't know.
Yeah.
Um
4, 5.
okay, yeah. I think probably Lindsey Buckingham's performance of Big Love at that MTV The Dance thing I was talking about. I didn't really like that song on the record, but that specific performance was just so killer and so just like present and clear, and his guitar playing was so on point, and it just really really inspired me.
Awesome. Well, it's good. You can kind of hear a lot of what you absorb, which is kind of great.
Mhm.
Do you like, I kind of feel like sometimes your music is kind of feels a bit no time, like it's not of a thing, it's not part of a movement or something, it's kind of its own thing. Did you kind of seek out artists that were felt like they were of a moment, or do you like that kind of timeless thing? I mean, that
Mm.
feels kind of ridiculous when I say it, because of
No, no,
course.
I mean, I know exactly what you mean. I
Yeah.
definitely think I'm drawn more towards bands and artists that feel timeless, you know, just what makes more sense to me, you know.
Yeah. What are you listening to now? Are you thinking about new music, or I suppose it's been a couple of years, just
Mhm.
saying. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, stuff pops up. Like I said, I'm listening to Full of Hell's new
Yeah.
stuff, new record. It's really good. Like I said, Lindy Fihella is putting out some new stuff that I really like. Um, I don't know. And then sometimes I go back like Placebo, Deftones. You know, that's also stuff I was listening to like in high school, my early 20s, and kind of been touching in with them. Um, yeah, that's kind of what's on my brain right now.
Yeah. I'm quite excited to talk to someone who came of age in the same era as me, because usually it's like 20 years earlier, 10 years. It's nice
Mhm.
to see that a lot of the music, yeah, that I connected with is, it goes global, and
Mhm.
that
We
it,
were I feel like we were
yeah.
so lucky. Like we had so
Yes.
much good music.
It
Not
was
to say
great.
that they don't now or something, but
Yeah.
I just there's so much good music, like especially late 90s,
Yeah. Oh my
early
God.
2000s. Yeah.
And it was a much more optimistic time. The worst thing that could have happened was Y2K, and all the numbers would go wrong, and didn't happen. That was the
Right.
scariest thing at the time. That was, and then 21st century, it's gotten pretty weird. Yeah. Okay, you kind of said L7 is your place of rage. Okay, what was the soundtrack to your first heartbreak?
Mm, probably like Blonde Redhead.
It's solid.
Um, Melody is a Butterfly, or Misery?
Yes.
Sorry, Misery is a Butterfly. Yeah, which
Awesome.
is like very appropriate, I feel like, for a breakup.
How do you find, what about music that kind of is your most joyous thing?
Joyous. It's a good one. I think again I'd have to say Vardruna.
Yeah.
I feel like they encompass a lot of like empowerment and joy for me, and calm, like I said, which is a joyful feeling for me.
Hmm.
As someone with anxiety, it's nice to feel calm. Also Stevie Nicks, you know, I think obviously I love her in Fleetwood Mac, but I think some of her solo stuff has a lot of like joy and just the
Yeah.
joy of singing and of being a musician. You know, you can just tell she loves it so much. So
She's a lifer
that's joy.
artist.
Hmm.
Total lifer.
Yeah, total inspiration for sure.
Yeah. Where do you want to go that you haven't gone yet?
A lot of places. You know, I feel like I've toured a lot, but it's generally like the same sort of spots.
Yeah.
You know, it would be great to go to like South or Central America. It would be great to I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I basically just like go where there are offers, but uh yeah, I'm down to try some new spots. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Looking forward to you coming to our country next year, which will be great.
Hmm.
I thought it'd just
Yeah,
be rescheduled like 1 month, and then Brandon told me he's like, no, it's a year. Like just
yeah.
expect like 2022 will be the roaring 20s. I'm
Hmm.
hopeful this will be the true roaring 20s. We'll have the
Yes.
post-pandemic, magical, beautiful return to form.
It's gonna be a
Um,
weird and wild time for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Are you guys going to tour Bloodmoon at all?
We are gonna do at least like some festival dates, I know.
Awesome.
Um, and then yeah, hopefully like some runs of shows would be really fun. We haven't talked about it specifically yet, but yeah.
Yeah. What Kurt seems like an interesting character. Did he affect you musically in any way? Like just working with him or yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I worked with him on my album His Fun,
Yeah, of course.
yeah, I specifically like we specifically wanted to work with him because obviously everything sounds great that he does, but we knew that he would really let the drums shine, and having it be like our first album with Jess, I
Yeah.
really wanted to like highlight her playing and like the shift that we were taking and having her in the band. And yeah, he spent a lot of time on the drums, and at some point there was like 10 different snares laid out for her to choose from for different songs, and it was really cool.
She had a good
um,
time.
yeah, I love Kurt. Yeah, totally. And I love that studio, and it's in Salem, which is like one of my favorite places. I have a lot of friends there, so it's just awesome to be there. Yeah.
Awesome. And you've got a project with her.
Yeah, Mrs.
Yeah.
Piss.
What's
Hmm.
what's the, what's the caper there? What are you going to do with that?
Yeah, I mean it's kind of like it's kind of an outlet for stuff that maybe feels a little bit too I don't know, maybe not that's not the right way of saying that, but just stuff that maybe doesn't fit in my head and like the realm of the Chelsea Wolfe project.
Yeah.
um there's maybe a little bit more like intentional rage and feminism and like
Yeah.
our collective experiences like being women on the road and
Mm.
kind of channeling a lot of that. So yeah,
It's
and also
complex,
just like
hey.
hmm?
It's complex, hey, like
Mhm.
with like I was saying to someone the other day, it's like as someone who grew up on heavy music, I've spent most of my life singing along with dudes, and it's quite nice to not to hear someone that comes from that place. And we do have a unique kind of rage. There
Mhm.
is rage in being a woman, like
Yeah, of
it's a
course.
very specific kind of rage, and it's
Yeah.
and there's a lot of good things about this moment. Time travel isn't something you'd want to do as a woman, really.
Mhm.
Pretty much you go back anywhere, it's pretty much worse.
Yeah.
And it's yeah, well, but at the same time there's complexity to it. Like I think growing up in really male dominated in music and production and all those sort of industries, there's also when you prove you might get a bit of like bullshit sexism, but often when you prove you're competent, there's a very much a brotherhood welcoming into the fold sort of thing. Like I don't know, what has been your experiences of that and the whole concept of being a woman on the road and being
Mhm.
the figurehead of your world as well?
Well, thankfully I've always sort of like been surrounded by people who don't make me feel like that. Like I think I was lucky enough to be able to surround myself with like band members and crew members and stuff who just kind of always made it feel like that wasn't an issue or like there
Yeah.
wasn't any like hierarchy or whatever. But so I think for a long time I sort of like maybe was in denial that there was any element of that, like if I would show up at a venue or with other bands and things like that. um, because maybe I think for a long time it was just easier to ignore it and just to like keep keep
100%.
moving on.
Know
But I
exactly what
think
that is. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And honestly, one of the great things about having Jess in the band was like sharing those experiences and being like, did you notice that? Because I thought that was fucking weird or whatever. And she is like such a badass. Like there was an experience we had on the road where this band we were touring with, um, no one that I would ever mention, none of my friends or anything, but like was treating their merch woman really shitty and just really demeaning. And Jess like full on confronted them and just was
Awesome.
like, you're off the tour if you do this again. And we made sure she was okay and stuff. But so it's just nice to have like
Yeah.
obviously again, all the men in my band and crew are also like would have my back in a second, but Jess and I are sort of like this united front. And yeah, I think that's what makes Mrs. Piss have that energy that it has, is the two of us
Yeah.
are just very close friends and almost like sisters, really, the two of us.
Yeah.
So,
That's a beautiful thing to find.
mhm.
What about your relationship with Ben and how he shaped how you listen as well, like as another kind of person that's been very involved in your sound?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I met Ben, it was like on a tour. He was playing in the other band that was on tour. It was like one of those early kind of short tours. But anyways, I had really been wanting at that time to add some sort of like electronic element to my band. It was like a 4-piece rock band, and I just could hear like synth or something, but I didn't really know how to do that, and just didn't know anyone. But he was kind of doing that in that other project, and yeah, so we started talking about jamming together, and that worked out really well. I brought his Juno to a band practice, and there was history, and but Juno 106, and yeah, I think, like I said, he definitely introduced me to some more extreme stuff, extreme music, extreme heavy music that I had sort of missed out on. And I think that had an influence, and touring with heavier bands over the years had an influence. And watching that together with Ben, and like obviously he's like my main co-writer, co-collaborator, and just being like, I want to write some songs that are like heavy and fun to play, and like that looks like a fucking blast to just be like digging into these chords and stuff. So I think over time it's like we kind of got heavier and heavier.
Yeah. You guys got some
together.
good serrated edges. There's some good serrated, like what's been the most eye-opening band to tour with? I love that you played with Youth Code, by the way. Sarah's About Us. Yeah. I would have loved to see that tour. That would have been amazing. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. It was a good one. It was a lot of fun. Oh, so many. I mean, we've gotten to tour with so many good bands. I loved playing with True Widow. They're one of my favorite bands. And yeah, Depression Circles, that heaviness,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the Queens of the Stone Age tour was very influential, and
yeah, what was that like?
It was great.
Yeah.
It was very felt very like supported and very like just able to like have our time on the stage and do our thing. And their audience for the most part was good. There's a few like,
I was gonna say, how did they get down?
Yeah, I think it was like a pretty good crossover. And I think like maybe 2 times there was like a show us your tits or something, but that kind of stuff always just like fires me up to play even better and harder. So it doesn't necessarily bother me. I mean, I don't want anyone to say that, like please don't start saying that, but
never say don't be an asshole.
Don't be an asshole. But no, it was great. Yeah, awesome. I mean, it's just like 2 short runs, but I feel like we learned a lot. You always learn a lot when you go, like we got to open for A Perfect Circle. I think the end of 2018. That was so much fun. Obviously, another influential, band of that era that we love, and learned a lot from that tour.
Yeah, what did you learn? What did Maynard teach you? Any mystical things? Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I feel like the things that I learn aren't so much like a musical
a nice verbalized, an easily verbalized thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like the what happens after you die question.
Yes. Just obviously you have a list just prepared, written in journal. Taught me this. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it's more about the way like a band will like conduct themselves, or like a singer will conduct themselves. I think I learned about like boundaries, from other artists, from bigger artists who are able to like take the time and space away from everyone that they need, or just like have certain boundaries that they know that they need in order to like save their voice. Like when we played with oh my god, why is their name escaping my head? Wow, this is so weird.
It'll come
anyways so Sargent House band, Woven Hand, thank you brain. we toured with Woven Hand, and the singer David like doesn't talk before the show, which some people might feel is weird, but like honestly it's my dream, because when you're on tour, like the whole point is to play a show and play the best show that you can, and as a singer it can sometimes be pretty like, it's actually like harder on your voice to just talk to people than it is to sing.
Really?
Yeah, like physically or whatever, it just,
yeah, I suppose you've trained your voice a lot and you'd have like ways.
Yeah, I mean, I more recently I've
Yeah.
done better, but yeah, I mean, I think like seeing people take the space or whatever that they need to do, even if other people think it's weird, that has always kind of like been something that I've taken away from working with bigger artists or artists I respect. Yeah,
learning to sing and stuff, did you realize you had a really unique voice quickly? Because you do have a super unique voice. I don't know whether you realized when you were like talking, but you know, like, yeah, when you were starting to sing, was it kind of like, is it surprising? I don't know if that's an experience singers have, but yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, my grandma told me something along those lines when I was young, like when she first heard the recordings I had made with my dad, you know, that my voice like just had like a special tonality to it or something. So I was like, I don't think I understood it. I was like, okay, cool. Like, glad you like it. But I think as I got older, I didn't always necessarily like love my voice or something, but then I would listen to artists like Neil Young or something, you know, who was a favorite of mine for a long time, and then kind of realize like he doesn't necessarily have what you would call like a quote unquote good voice or something. It's not like technically, you know, American Idol perfect or some shit, but like but it's more about like the soul behind it and the whatever is like his strange personal wisdom that's coming out of him through the way he expresses his voice. I don't know, you know what I mean? Like
man, the emotional resonance. Which is,
so I think at some point I understood that I had that in my own way, you know, like I didn't have maybe like technically the perfect voice, but it could connect with certain people in a certain way. So
well, rhythmic like gymnastics, vocal gymnastics isn't necessarily the way to someone's feelings, you know.
I mean, I think it can be for some people, or maybe with certain artists, you know, like maybe Whitney Houston or something, you know, like she can probably combine the two things, you know. But
awesome, thank you for being a part of our show.
Thanks for having me.
It's been really great, and it's really cool to kind of learn another side of you and go forth. I can't wait to hear this Bloodmoon album. I'm really excited to hear it all and go forth and make incredible music. Continue, please.
Thank you.
Just don't stop. Don't stop.
I love the show too. I've been listening to a few of the other ones. Like I listened to the Nate one, which was really funny. He always cracks me up. But
he's a truly ridiculous human.
Yeah, he's wonderful. Like, and then the one with Al was great too.
I was terrified. I was terrified. I got off. I'm like, that wasn't. I was like, this. I didn't even talk about revolting cocks. I've just hacked this. It's ridiculous. And then I was like, it was probably fine. It's, you know what it's like to kind of pull your stuff apart a bit.
Oh yeah, definitely. Every time, every little thing. Don't worry.
But it's been, I'm really glad of the cross section of artists we've had, a part of the future and the past and the present, and you're a big part of the present and the future. And I mean, you have a part, you know what I mean. It's cool.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
Cool. Well, thanks everyone for watching or listening, however you happen to find it. This is Chelsea Wolfe. This is the Revolver Fan First podcast.